board this week after decades in prison for killing their parents in 1989 at their Beverly Hills mansion. During 2 days of hearings, the brothers were each questioned by panels of 2 commissioners and asked to speak with complete candor on the abuse they suffered in childhood, their mindsets leading up to and after the murders, and various transgressions in prison. The brothers were sentenced to life back in 1996 for fatally shooting Jose and Kitty Menendez. I do want to discuss all of this here as we wait to see what does happen next. We do have a friend of the show here, Lauren Johnson-Norris, criminal defense attorney over in California. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here and help break down a story that so many people are following all over the country.
Glad to be here.
All right, so first off, I just have to ask you, is this the result that you were expecting?
This is the result that I was expecting. The reason being that both of these men were rated as a substantial risk or a moderate risk if they were released, and that creates the risk of danger to the public safety. Folks who are rated at that level, moderate risk, have about a 22% chance of being released on parole. So coming into the proceedings, looking at the law and looking at sort of what we see as a standard, they already had a low risk that they would be released. But then there were the cell phones, and the cell phones really turned out to be the problem for both of them because they violated a rule of the prison. And from the parole hearing agents, from their perspective, if they can't be trusted to follow the rules inside, how can we trust you to follow the laws when you're released?
I did want to ask, was there any chance, and I ask you this because on Thursday night when Eric was denied parole, people said, well, maybe Lyle will get parole just based on the cell phone situation and just what went on Thursday. Was there any chance that one brother was granted parole and the other wasn't?
Well, there's always a chance because each one of them go up and are looked at on their own conduct and on the merits. But the crimes were the same. Really, the question came down to their conduct. Now, Eric's conduct was far worse while he was incarcerated. He was involved in helping some fraud schemes, smuggling in some, there were drug allegations of violence. So his situation was worse. Lyle really only had the cell phone violation, but from the hearing officer's perspective, a violation is a violation. And one violation was enough ultimately to tank Lyle's attempt at parole as well.
And not to get too far into the weeds here, but what legal standards are typically looked at, considered there in parole decisions for inmates who are serving life sentences?
Well, the standard is an unreasonable danger to public safety. And so the hearing officers are looking at the crimes, their level of remorse, what their plans are upon release, how they come across, whether they complied while in prison, all of those factors to determine if they create a threat to society.
You have a lot of documentaries, movies, social media posts that are all dedicated to the Menendez brothers. A lot of that really coming out within the last several months to a year. There's always been discussion about it, but it's picked up. So how does that kind of play a role into this situation? Do the parole boards take this into consideration at all?
The parole hearing officers are professionals. They don't consider the media attention. I would say that they are charged with following the law and looking at the evidence before them. But I will say we wouldn't really know about this case if it wasn't in the press. And so everything that's been reported about the family support and their conduct, if this was some person who wasn't in the limelight, so to speak, we wouldn't know about the way that the case is being scrutinized and the hearing officers' conduct or their actions being scrutinized and coming to their outcome.
All right, so the big question here is what happens next? What are the legal avenues that the brothers have right now? Can they appeal that decision by the parole board, or do they have to wait several months, possibly 18 months to 3 years before they can ask again to be released?
What happens next is that there is a 120-day period of an administrative review. And assuming that the rest of the board agrees, it will go to the governor. And the governor has 30 days to either go along with the decision or reverse the decision. So I anticipate the governor will go along with the decision, but the Menendez brothers still have the opportunity to ask for a new trial by filing a habeas petition in the court. And then, of course, they'll be up again in 3 years to pitch it all over again and ask for their freedom at that time.
Regardless of time served, behavior in prison, what role does the nature of the crime really play in the parole board decisions? Because it's important to know we are talking about the brutal murders of two people, their parents, inside of this Beverly Hills mansion.
Well, every single person who's up for parole after a period of time like this will have been convicted of committing a heinous act. I mean, they did 35 years out of 50 years. So the crime is not disputed. It was heinous. But what the hearing officers are really looking at is what has happened in the last 35 years. What has transpired? Have they reformed? Have they complied with the rules of prison? And it sounds like, based on their comments, that they didn't, and that's why they weren't getting released, not because of the heinous acts.
All right. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Lauren Johnson-Norris. We appreciate it, criminal defense attorney. Anything else that you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
I'm glad that the public gets to see the inner workings of these processes. Like I said, if this was just a regular guy off the street facing these considerations, we wouldn't know. And ultimately, the public gets to decide how they want to see the criminal justice system when they learn about these high-profile cases.
All right. Thank you again for being here with us to help break it all down. We appreciate it.
Thank you.